What was the significance of the Panthay Rebellion? The Panthay Rebellion of 1856 until 1873, an uprising also known as the Wenxiu Rebellion, was an uprising led by the Muslim Hui people that involves other Muslim minorities in addition to other non-Muslim ethnic groups against the Manchu-led Qing dynasty in southern China's Yunnan province, which became a part of a series of Hui-led protests. The name Panthay originates from Burma and was a name by which the Burmese call Chinese Muslims who arrived in numbers from the Chinese province of Yunnan. The name itself was not used or even known at that time in Yunnan. Originally, the rebellion referred to itself as the Pingnan Kingdom, which means the Pacified Southern Kingdom. Background. In 1856, a massacre of Muslims organized by the Qing Manchu official responsible for suppressing a revolt in the capital of Yunnan province sparked a multi-ethnic insurgency across Yunnan. The Manchu official who instigated the massacre of Muslims was Qing, who had developed a deep hatred of Muslims after an incident where he was stripped naked and nearly lynched by a mob of Muslims. Qing ordered several Muslims to be slowly sliced to death in a process known as Ling Chi, or death by 1,000 cuts. However, historian Tariq Ali claimed in his writing that the Muslims who had come close to lynching Qing were not Hui but belonged to another ethnicity. Despite this, the Manchu official blamed all Muslims for the unpleasant incident in his past. Meanwhile, in the city of Dali in western Yunnan, an independent kingdom was established by Du Wenxiu of Han Chinese origins who had converted to Islam. Du led both Hui Muslims and Han Chinese in his civil and military bureaucracy. Du Wenxiu openly claimed that his aim was to drive out the Manchus and unite with the ethnic Han while destroying those that supported the Qing government. Furthermore, Du did not blame the Han for the massacres of Hui, he blamed only the Manchu regime for the massacre, further claiming they were foreign to China and that they alienated the Chinese and other ethnic minorities. Du frequently used anti-Manchu rhetoric as he tried to convince the Han and Hui to join forces to overthrow the Manchu Qing government. Du invited the Hui Muslim leader Ma Rulong to join him in driving the Qing out and recovering China. For his war against Manchu oppression, Du became a hero of Muslims, while Ma Rulong defected to the Qing. Kunming was attacked on multiple occasions by Du Wenxiu's forces from his capital at Dali. The revolt ended in 1873, with Du Wenxiu even today being regarded as a hero in China. During the insurrection, Du Wenxiu had released a slogan to bring peace to Han down with the Qing court. Differing opinions to the causes. British Army officer Lieutenant General Albert Fitch was of the opinion that the revolt was not religious in nature due to the Muslims being joined in their cause by non-Muslim hill tribes such as the Shan and Kakien. He further stated that the Chinese were tolerant of different religions, so were unlikely to have caused the revolt by interfering in the practice of Islam. Further to this, Fitch claimed that Muslim forces loyal to the Qing helped crush the rebellion. Fitch further claimed it was a discrimination by the Imperial Chinese administration against the Hui that caused the rebellion. The opinion of historian James Hastings, written in Volume 8 of the Encyclopedia of Religion and Ethics, was that the Panthay Revolt was set off by racial antagonism and class warfare rather than due to Islam and religion. Other sources, however, suggest that the origins for the Panthay Rebellion were solely as a conflict between Han Chinese and Hui miners in 1853. This despite there being tension between the two groups existing for decades before the revolt erupting. including a massacre occurring over 3 days by Han and Qing officials of Hui in 1845. At that time, the two groups were seen by the Qing as two different ethnic groups, with the Hui not exclusively classified by their religion. Course of the war. The rebellion began as widespread local uprisings across the province of Yunnan. The rebels in western Yunnan, under the leadership of Wenxiu, became a major military and political centre of opposition to the Qing government. Upon taking control, Wenxiu promised he would ally with the Pingnan Rebellion, which was also at that time aiming to overthrow the Qing. The rebels under Du captured the city of Dali and used the city as a base for their operations, as they declared themselves as a separate political entity from China. The rebels identified their nation as Pingnan Kingdom, which literally translates as the Pacified Southern State. Pagan tribalism, Confucianism and Islam were all legalized and honored with a Chinese-style bureaucracy within the Sultanate ruled by Wenxiu. However, it was not entirely run by the Hui Muslims. A third of the military posts were filled by Han Chinese, who also filled the majority of the civilian posts. The eating of pork was banned, and incidentally, that practice was also adopted by Ma Rulong in areas under his control after he surrendered and joined up with the Qing. The imperial government was at that time hindered by a profusion of problems across the sprawling empire. In addition to the Taiping Rebellion, China was also suffering from the effects of the unequal treaties, such as the Treaty of Nanking. These conditions favoured the ascendancy of the Muslims in Yunnan. A total war was waged against Manchu rule, with Wenxiu refusing to surrender, unlike Ma Rulong, the other most prominent rebellious commander. Negotiations. During the revolt, Hui Muslims from provinces not in rebellion, such as Sichuan and Zhejiang, served as negotiators between the rebellious Hui and the Qing. One of Du's banners read, "Deprive the Manchu Qing of their mandate to rule." Du also called on the Han to assist the Hui in their attempts to overthrow the Manchu-led government and to drive the Manchu Chinese from China. The Pacified Southern Kingdom. The Manchus had secretly provoked anti-Hui riots and instigated the destruction of mosques. The rebels were joined by non-Muslim Shan and Kachin people, in addition to other hill tribes during the revolt. Du's forces led multiple non-Muslim rebels, including Li, Bai and Hani, while Muslims had remained loyal to the Qing. The Qing government aided them in pacifying the rebellion. The rebels took one city after another from the hands of the imperial government. Any town or village that showed resistance was pillaged, with the male population massacred. Any settlement that yielded was spared this treatment. The ancient holy city of Dali fell to the Panthay rebels in 1857, and with the capture of that city, the supremacy of Muslims within Yunnan became an established fact. Different sects of Islam reacted differently. Then the Gedumu Hanafi Sunni Muslims under the control of Ma Rulong generally defected to the Qing, while the Jariya Sufi Muslims chose not to surrender. Incidentally, some of the Jariya rebels in the Panthay Rebellion, such as Ma Shenling, were related to the Jariya leader of the Dungan Revolt, Ma Hualong, and remained in contact throughout the rebellion. The years from 1860 until 1868 were the heyday of the declared Sultanate. During this time, the Panthays had taken control of or destroyed over 40 towns and 100 villages. Decline. After 1868, the power of the Sultanate fell into decline once the Chinese imperial government had reinvigorated itself. By 1871, the Qing government was directing a campaign for the annihilation of any obdurate Hui Muslims located in Yunnan. During this time, the Qing government had effectively tightened the cordon around the Sultanate. This action led the Sultanate becoming unstable after repeated and determined attacks on the territory held by the Panthay. Town after town fell to the Qing as they conducted well-organized attacks, with the city of Dali finding itself besieged by imperial forces. Sultan Suleiman found himself caged in by the walls of his capital and desperately seeking outside assistance, he looked to the British for military aid. In his eyes, only British intervention could save his sultanate, and he had reasons for turning to the British after earlier negotiations had taken place to reopen trade between Yunnan and British Burma and India, trade that had ceased in 1855 because of the rebellion. Taking advantage of the friendly relations between the Sultan and the British delegation, Suleiman turned to the British Empire to save the Pingnan Sultanate, seeking formal recognition and military assistance. In 1872, Suleiman sent his adopted son, Prince Hassan, to England with a personal letter for Queen Victoria. This mission was given hospitality in both Burma and England upon his arrival. However, the British politely but firmly refused to intervene in Yunnan against Peking. Even if the British had agreed to assist, the reply came too late. While Hassan and his party were being received overseas, Dali was recaptured by the Qing soldiers in January 1873. The imperial government had waged all-out war on the Sultanate with the assistance of French artillery. The ill-equipped rebels with no allies were no match for the modern equipment, trained personnel and numerical superiority deployed by the Qing. Within 2 decades of its rise, the power of the Panthays in Yunnan fell. Seeing no chance to escape and realizing there would be no mercy shown by his enemy, Suleiman attempted to take his own life before Dali fell. However, before the opium he took could fully take effect, he was captured and beheaded. Manchu soldiers then began the systematic massacre of the rebels, killing thousands of civilians in addition to the combatants. The body of Suleiman is entombed in Xiadai, outside of Dali. His head was preserved in honey and sent to the imperial court in Peking as a trophy. Ma Rulong, the Muslim general who defected to the Qing and helped crush fellow Muslims, was known as Martial Ma by Europeans, and after the rebellion gained almost total control of Yunnan province. Scattered remnants of Pingnan soldiers continued their resistance after the fall of Dali, but when Momian was besieged and eventually stormed by the Imperial Army in May 1873, that resistance was completely broken. Aftermath. Here we look at 3 different aspects of the aftermath. First, the atrocities committed, followed by the impact on Muslims, and end with the impact on Burma. Atrocities. While the rebellion claimed the lives of up to 1 million people in Yunnan province, many of those having been subjected to persecution by the Imperial Army under the Qing government's Manchu rulers. Massacres of Muslims in Yunnan occurred, resulting in families fleeing across the international border into British-controlled Burma. Many of those fled took refuge in Hua State, where in 1875 they set up the town of Panglong, an exclusively Hui settlement. For around 10 or 15 years after the collapse of the Panthay Rebellion, the province's Hui minority was widely discriminated against by the Qing, especially in the western border areas of the province close to the border with Burma. During this period, the Hui settled in Burma, establishing themselves as merchants, miners, restaurateurs, and for those unable to find legitimate employment, as smugglers and mercenaries. During this time, they became known in Burma as the Panthay. Over time, the original Hui settlers were joined in Burma by groups of hill people, including the Shan. Eventually, the Chinese Muslim town of Panlong was entirely destroyed by the Japanese when they invaded Burma in 1942 during the Second World War. Those that survived the attack fled back across the border into Yunnan. An account of the Japanese attack on Panlong was written by Hui and published in 1998, known as Panlong Booklet. Impact on Muslims. The Qing dynasty only attacked the Muslims involved in the rebellion, and those that surrendered were spared. An example of this was the Muslim general Ma Rulong, who swapped sides to join the Qing and was subsequently promoted after helping to defeat the rebels. Muslims not involved in the rebellion, such as those living in the prefecture of Zhaotong in the northeast of Yunnan, were left to continue their lives as normal, and after the rebellion, a large Muslim population continued to live in peace in that area. Impact on Burma. The Panthay Rebellion had a significant negative impact on the Kuomintang dynasty in Burma. After ceding Lower Burma to the British following the First Anglo-Burmese War, Burma lost access to vast tracts of rice-growing land. Rather than upset relations with the Qing government, agreeing to Chinese demands, the Burmese kingdom refused to trade with the Pingnan rebels. However, the Burmese were then unable to import rice from China and forced to trade with India. Another crop they had relied on was cotton. Exports to China also lost due to the rebellion. Many of the Hui escaping from China, in addition to settling in Burma, also fled to other neighbouring countries such as Thailand and Laos, resulting in small enclaves of Hui in those regions. That brings us to the end of this video, highlighting an uprising in the southwest of China that spilled over into neighbouring Burma and elsewhere through the flight of refugees. If you've enjoyed watching and it's shown you a little detail of life and events here in China, then your subscribing to my channel would mean a lot to me. Thank you for watching. Make sure you click on the link to the next video, and until the next time, goodbye for now.